Adaba gently adjusted her hijab as she walked through the wide marble corridors of the university building in Los Angeles. Her footsteps were soft, but her presence radiated strength. Amidst a campus sea of jeans, crop tops, and oversized hoodies, her flowing floral abaya and soft lavender hijab didn't blend in. They stood out, but not as a wall, as a declaration. She wasn't just wearing fabric, she was wearing her faith. Adaba had journeyed from Indonesia to pursue a degree in religious philosophy. Her passion had always been rooted in discussion, theology, and understanding the foundations of belief systems. Yet nothing had quite prepared her for the silent weight of being the only hijabi in a classroom where religion wasn't merely examined, it was frequently questioned, dissected, and even dismissed. She often felt alone, not because of overt hostility, but because of the stares and the unspoken curiosity, questions that lingered in the silence. She could feel the gaze of others, studying her like an ancient manuscript waiting to be interpreted. But she wasn't hurt. She had long grown accustomed to that scrutiny. Every day, as she entered that classroom, she carried the courage of generations before her, and the quiet power of someone who deeply understood the purpose behind her faith. In the same classroom sat Olivia, confident, articulate, and a devout Christian from Los Angeles. She was known for her eloquence, respected by professors, and admired by classmates. Her golden hair was always perfectly brushed, her glasses sat neatly on her nose, and her voice, whether sharp or courteous, commanded attention. For Olivia, religion was a battleground, a pursuit of truth that demanded defense and victory. She didn't hate other religions, but she firmly believed Christianity was the only path. Her words had defeated others in many a debate. Yet today, as she watched Adaba, she felt a strange kind of tension rising. She couldn't quite understand how someone so covered, so outwardly modest, could exude such composure. To Olivia, the hijab had always symbolized silence and submission. How could someone wearing it look so free? It began with a look, then a question, then a challenge. "Adaba," Olivia said one afternoon after class, her voice echoing slightly in the room. "Let's debate. Just you and me. No filters. If your religion is really what you believe it is, prove it. Defend it." The room fell quiet. Some students smirked, others exchanged knowing glances. The professor raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Adaba didn't flinch. She met Olivia's gaze and nodded steadily. "All right," she said, "but we debate with respect. The goal isn't to win, it's to understand." Olivia gave a sharp smile. "Fine, but let's raise the stakes. If I lose, I'll read your Quran. I'll honestly try to understand your point of view, but if you lose, you consider leaving Islam. You explore Christianity." Gasps spread through the room. Eyes widened. The atmosphere turned dense with tension. Adaba hesitated for a brief moment. She wasn't reckless, but deep inside, she believed Allah had brought her here for a reason. She breathed in and replied calmly, "Fine. But this isn't about who changes their faith. It's about who speaks with truth. Let the audience decide." The day of the debate arrived. The classroom was packed. Even students who typically cared little for theology filled the seats, notebooks in hand, curiosity in their eyes. Some had come to see Adaba falter. Others came just to witness someone brave enough to debate Olivia without backing down. The professor reviewed the ground rules. No interruptions, no personal attacks, time limits for each argument. Olivia began. She stood, poised, and gestured toward Adaba. "Islam requires women to cover themselves. Isn't that oppression? Doesn't it strip away a woman's voice and visibility?" A few heads nodded in agreement. The question lingered. Adaba stood slowly. Her voice was soft, but firm with purpose. "The hijab isn't about concealment," she said. "It's about dignity. It protects me from being judged by my body. It's my choice, not a shackle. In Islam, the instruction isn't to silence women. It's to shield them from being reduced to objects. The room grew still. "You say it restricts me," she continued. "I say it liberates me. I'm not competing in the world with my skin. I'm competing with my intellect and spirit." Olivia frowned. "Then explain polygamy. If Islam values women, why allow a man to have multiple wives? Isn't that inherently unjust?" Adaba's expression didn't change. Her tone remained steady, precise. Polygamy in Islam isn't a free pass. It's a regulation, not a promotion. It's permitted under certain conditions, like war or societal imbalance, and even then, only with fairness. The Quran says clearly, if you cannot deal justly, then marry only one. Polygamy is not the rule. It's the exception, and justice is the condition. Olivia hadn't expected such clarity. These weren't defensive. Standing firm in her beliefs without resorting to anger, without raising her voice. They saw dignity, restraint, and unwavering conviction, wrapped not just in a cloth, but in strength, and they began to question whether they had ever truly understood Islam at all. The energy in the classroom during the second session of the debate was distinctly different. It no longer buzzed with curiosity or quiet mockery. Instead, it was charged with attention and sincere interest. Students who had originally attended just to observe a clash now sat up straight, ready to listen with intent. Conversations had trickled through the corridors of the campus. The girl in the hijab who stayed composed under pressure, and the confident Christian student who had lost her composure. Even Olivia seemed changed. Her usual flawless appearance remained, her golden hair perfectly brushed, her sharp blazer neatly pressed, but something in her demeanor had softened. There was no smirk this time, no air of superiority. She sat quietly, a notebook in her lap, occasionally glancing at Adaba, who faced her with the same tranquil expression that had become her signature. The professor cleared his throat to begin. "Today," he said, "we continue the dialogue between Olivia and Adaba. I remind you all to maintain a spirit of respect, of seeking to understand, not just to respond." He turned to Olivia. "You may begin." Olivia rose slowly, holding a note card in her hand, but after a moment's pause, she set it down and spoke directly. "I came here last time to win," she said, her voice noticeably gentler. "But after everything that happened, I realized something. I let my pride take over. I wasn't really here to understand. I was here to argue, and that wasn't fair, to any of you, or to you, Adaba." Her eyes met Adaba's. "I'm sorry." Adaba nodded with grace. Apology accepted. There was a tangible shift in the room, like a collective breath had been released. The tension eased. Olivia continued, "But I still have questions, real questions, and I hope you're open to me asking them." Adaba smiled warmly. "Of course, that's how we grow." Taking a deep breath, Olivia asked, "What does Islam say about Jesus? If Muslims don't believe he's God, then who is he?" A murmur rippled across the room. It wasn't just another cultural or political topic. It was deeply theological, and the sincerity in Olivia's voice gave it weight. "In Islam," Adaba began, "Jesus, whom we call Isa, is deeply respected. We believe he was born miraculously to the Virgin Mary, without a father. We believe he performed many miracles, healing the sick, raising the dead, but we don't worship him. We don't see him as the Son of God, but as one of the greatest messengers sent by God to guide humanity." "But if he wasn't crucified," Olivia interjected, "then what happened to him?" Adaba nodded, anticipating the question. "The Quran says Jesus was not crucified or killed. It was made to appear so to the people. Instead, God raised him up. He wasn't defeated, he was protected." Around the room, students looked thoughtful. This perspective was unfamiliar to many of them, yet the clarity and calm in Adaba's voice gave it a new kind of credibility. Olivia tilted her head. So then, who is God? Adaba's smile deepened. God is one, eternal, absolute. He was not born, and he does not give birth. He depends on no one, but we all depend on him. He is the most merciful, the most just, the all-knowing. We call him Allah, not a different God, but the same Creator who sent Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. Peace be upon them all. A hush fell over the room. No scoffing, no shifting in seats, just stillness. The room was truly listening. Olivia quietly returned to her seat. The professor gestured for Adaba to continue. This conversation, Adaba began, is not about proving who is superior. It's about clarifying what has been misunderstood. Too often, people only know Islam through headlines or hostility. They haven't seen it through peace. She paused, her eyes scanning the room. When I wear my hijab, I'm not hiding. I'm displaying loyalty, not to society, not to men, but to my Creator. When I pray, I'm not putting on a performance. I'm surrendering my heart. And when I speak of my prophet, I speak of a man who elevated women, who fed the hungry, who forgave even his enemies. Olivia's expression softened, her gaze lingering on Adaba with something like respect, or perhaps even awe. Later that evening, Olivia sat in the quiet of the campus library, thoughts tumbling through her mind. She had always believed Christianity held the full truth. It was what she'd been taught since childhood. But now, for the first time, she was hearing ideas that not only made sense, but came from a source she had once dismissed. She opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "What do Muslims believe about Jesus?" To her astonishment, the information aligned exactly with what Adaba had said. Multiple credible sources spoke of Jesus' Vir. Then, one night, she read a verse that unraveled her. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and day are signs for those of understanding. She read it again, and again. Her heart swelled, her eyes filled with tears. This wasn't just a book. It was a message, a letter, from the one who made her. She held the Quran to her chest and whispered, barely audible, "God, if this is true, guide me." And just like that, something turned inside her. No longer just questioning, she was yearning. The next morning, Olivia stood before her bathroom mirror. She looked the same on the outside, hair brushed, makeup done, blouse crisp, but inside, she felt like a different person. Something had shifted, something irreversible. She opened the drawer beside the sink and took out the English-translated Quran that Adaba had given her. Its green cover was soft beneath her fingertips, its pages delicate but powerful. She flipped to the sticky note tucked inside, Adaba's neat handwriting. Start with Surah Maryam. A story, you know, told like never before. That night, alone in her room, Olivia lay in bed with the English-translated Quran resting gently in her hands. She stared at the folded sticky note left by Adaba. Start with Surah Maryam. It's a story you already know, told in a way you never have. Her fingers quivered slightly as she opened to the marked page. The night around her was still, no stained glass windows, no soft hymns echoing from a church choir, no flickering candles, just the gentle rustle of pages and her breath as she began to read. The words told a familiar story, yet in a voice she had never heard before. She read about Mary's unwavering devotion, her solitude, and her encounter with the divine. The verses spoke of the miraculous birth of Jesus, not as a deity, but as a chosen prophet, a sign of God's mercy, not his defeat. There was no cross, no crown of thorns, only a cradle and the voice of a baby proclaiming servitude to the Creator. Olivia's heart beat faster. It wasn't disbelief she felt, but wonder, and something else she couldn't quite name. The following morning, she arrived in class earlier than usual, taking a seat quietly at the back. Her headphones played something unfamiliar yet deeply stirring, Quranic recitation in Arabic. She didn't understand the words, but the cadence, the melody, it struck something deep inside her. The tone was raw, unadorned, powerful in its simplicity. As the surging syllables washed over her, her eyes welled with tears she hadn't realized she'd been holding. When Adaba walked into the room, she immediately noticed the difference in Olivia's expression. It wasn't pride, nor was it defensiveness. There was a strange mix of confusion and something softer, something resembling hope. Later, during a lecture on comparative theology, Olivia raised her hand slowly, almost hesitantly. "Professor," she asked, her voice unusually quiet, "what makes a belief true? Is it history? Is it evidence? Or is it the peace it brings?" The question lingered in the air. The professor paused, surprised. He was used to Olivia debating, not reflecting. "That depends," he said carefully. "Sometimes, truth isn't something you only find in books. It's in what those books awaken inside you." That night, Olivia couldn't let go of his words. A few days later, Adaba found Olivia sitting alone on a bench outside the library. Her head was bowed, the Quran open in her lap. Without lifting her eyes, Olivia spoke, her voice small and uncertain. "I can't keep pretending I'm unaffected. I can't act like I'm the same person I was." "You don't have to," Adaba replied gently, sitting beside her. "Faith isn't something we wear or hide. Even confusion is part of the journey." Olivia finally looked up. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, from quiet tears shed in solitude. "Why didn't anyone ever tell me that Muslims honor Jesus, that you believe in his miracles, in his virgin birth? All my life I thought Islam rejected him entirely." "That's what happens," Adaba said softly, "when we learn about others through stereotypes and not through their own words." "But it's more than just Jesus," Olivia continued, the weight of years pressing through each word. "It's about who God is. I always believed God was love, but the Trinity confused me. A Father, a Son, a Spirit, all one, yet separate. I was told not to question, to just accept, but it never made sense." "You don't need to shut off your mind to open your heart," Adaba said with quiet conviction. "In Islam, we're taught to engage both." A shaky breath escaped Olivia's lips. What if everything I believed was wrong?" "Then you've taken your first step toward something right," Adaba said. "Truth doesn't erase your past. It makes it whole." In the days that followed, Olivia changed. Not with loud proclamations, but in quiet, steady ways. She no longer joined class debates to dominate or win. She listened more. And whoever seeks a way other than Islam, it will not be accepted of him. Those who believe and do righteous deeds, the most merciful will plant for them love. She closed the book and whispered into the quiet room, "God, are you calling me?" The next day, Olivia skipped her classes. She walked for hours through the city. She passed old churches, remembered the songs and sermons of her youth, but they felt distant now, like memories of another life. At a bookstore, she picked up a book titled Islam, a brief introduction. At a red light, a billboard caught her eye. "There is no God but God." She smiled. Back on campus, she messaged Adaba. "Can we meet? I need to talk." That evening, in a quiet corner of the campus garden, Olivia met her. The breeze carried the scent of jasmine. The light was dimming, softening the world. Olivia faced Adaba, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I'm ready." Adaba didn't speak. She simply reached for her hand, eyes full. "I'm not scared of Islam," Olivia continued. "I'm scared of what it means for everything I thought I knew. If I take this step, everything changes." "Not everything is lost," Adaba said. "Some things are finally found." "I used to think I had all the answers," Olivia said. "Now I realize I was too afraid to ask the right questions. But Islam, it answers them. Not by force, not with fear, but with logic, with beauty, with peace. Adaba nodded. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. When we seek God sincerely, He opens the doors we never knew existed. So, what do I do now? Olivia asked. What's next? If you believe there is only one God, Adaba replied, and that Muhammad is his final messenger, then all that's left is to say it from your heart. That's the Shahada. It's not just words, it's a covenant. Olivia's breath caught. Can I say it here? Yes, Adaba smiled. Whenever you're ready. As the golden glow of sunset bathed the garden, Olivia closed her eyes. Her voice trembled, but her heart did not. I bear witness that there is no God but God, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not of loss, but of coming home. Adaba squeezed her hand. Welcome, my sister. Later that night, Olivia walked back to her dorm under a sky littered with stars. The world looked unchanged, yet everything inside her had shifted. In her room, she stood before her mirror. Her face was the same, but her soul felt completely different, more herself than she had ever been. The next morning, she stood in front of her closet, unsure of what to wear. Her fingers reached for a long cardigan and a soft scarf, not to impress anyone, not for show, but because now she knew who she was. Because something deep within her whispered that modesty held beauty, Olivia draped a soft scarf around her head that morning. It wasn't to stand out, nor to impress. It simply felt right. As she stepped into the classroom, the usual chatter dimmed. A quiet tension rippled through the room. Some students lifted their eyes, briefly meeting hers before looking away. Others stared at the floor, unsure what to say. But Olivia walked with quiet resolve, head held high, and took her place beside Adiba. The professor glanced at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, but he said nothing. The class continued as it always had, yet something had fundamentally changed. Olivia was no longer just studying religion. She had entered belief. After the lecture, a friend approached her, concern etched across her face. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Olivia smiled, gentle but sure. "More than okay. I've never felt more at peace in my life." The friend didn't know how to respond. Her silence spoke volumes, and, like all things on campus, news traveled fast. Whispers followed Olivia through hallways. Some people reacted with disbelief. Others murmured judgments under their breath. A few shook their heads as if she had abandoned something sacred. Not all reactions were negative. A Jewish classmate, Rachel, approached Olivia one afternoon between classes. "I've never seen anyone look so calm in their faith," she said. "It's made me curious. I think I'll start reading about Islam." Olivia's smile widened. That's all it takes, a bit of curiosity and a willing heart. Through all of it, Adaba remained her steady companion. They began praying together in the campus prayer room. Olivia was still learning. She stumbled through the Arabic words, mixed up the verses, forgot steps, but Adaba never chastised her. "You're not expected to be perfect," she said, "only sincere." Each evening, Olivia read a few pages of the Quran before bed. It became more than routine. It was her solace. The verses eased her lingering doubts, firmed her heart, and replaced her hunger for proof with quiet assurance. One afternoon, Olivia picked up the phone and called her mother. Her voice was soft, tentative. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." Silence stretched on the line. Later that day, Olivia received an email from her professor. He had noticed the change in her tone, her demeanor, her engagement. He wanted to meet. Nervous, she entered his office. "I wanted to talk to you," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Not as your professor, but as someone who's observed your journey." She said nothing, unsure what was coming. I've watched many students wrestle with belief. Few do it with the honesty and dignity that you have. Something significant has clearly shifted in you. Olivia nodded quietly. I've embraced Islam. He gave a small smile. I suspected as much, and I respect it. Not because of what you chose, but how you chose it. Carefully, thoughtfully, sincerely. Relief washed over her. The road ahead may feel lonely, he added, but remember, truth is rarely loud. It's often found in stillness. She thanked him, her heart lighter as she left his office. In the following days, something unexpected happened. The very students who had whispered or stared began to approach her, some with skepticism, some with genuine curiosity. Why did you convert? Was it because of Adaba? Do you really believe Muhammad was a prophet? Do you think Islam is better than Christianity? Olivia answered them all patiently, never preachy, never defensive. I didn't convert to be better than anyone, she said. I converted because Islam answered questions I couldn't keep ignoring. And yes, Adaba helped me learn, but this path was mine alone. One evening, she was invited to speak at a small interfaith gathering on campus. The theme was Transitions of Faith, a personal journey. Standing before the modest audience, her scarf neatly pinned and her notebook in hand, she began. I used to believe that faith meant not asking questions. I thought questioning God was the same as doubting Him. But in Islam, I found the opposite. God invites us to ask, to reflect, to reason. She paused, letting her words settle. I didn't leave Christianity in anger. I left with gratitude. It helped me draw close to the idea of God, but Islam brought me close to God Himself. The room was silent. Some nodded. Others looked down, thoughtful. Afterward, a girl from the audience approached her. I'm not Muslim, she said, but you've made me want to learn more. Thank you for your courage. Brave, Olivia thought to herself. Maybe that's what this whole journey was. A slow, sometimes painful, always honest path toward something real. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply transformative. She walked home that night beneath a quiet sky, stars blinking above her, and felt something she hadn't known before. Not that she had changed, but that she had arrived. Olivia had never seen herself as brave. Fear had accompanied her through nearly every step of her journey. But maybe that's what courage really was. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward in spite of it. Her relationship with her mother remained tender and uncertain. Their conversations were light, careful, often skirting around the topic of religion. Yet there was a newfound gentleness in her mother's voice that hadn't been there before. One evening, during a quiet call, her mother said softly, I'm proud of you, not for the path you chose, but for choosing it with both your heart and your mind. Those words meant more to Olivia than she could say. Meanwhile, Adaba continued to be her steady anchor. Together, they began organizing informal study circles for students who were curious about Islam. They called it Coffee and Questions. Every week, they gathered in a cozy corner of the campus cafe to talk about purpose, morality, the role of women in Islam, the nature of God, and more. The group began to grow. People came, not necessarily looking to convert, but to finally hear Islam presented by someone who lived it, not with dogma, but with gentleness, honesty, and grace. During one session on worship, a student raised a question. Do you ever miss church services? The music, the community, the rituals? Olivia smiled, thoughtful. Sometimes, yes, but I found something deeper in the silence of prostration, in whispering my needs to God alone. Islam taught me that worship isn't confined to buildings. It lives in every breath, every intention. That night, Olivia strolled by the campus lake, the breeze cool against her cheeks, her scarf fluttering lightly in the wind. She paused under a sky full of stars, clear, quiet, untouched by the noise of the world. She whispered a small prayer in her own words. God, thank you for not letting me settle. Thank you for the discomfort that made me search. And thank you for showing me that surrender isn't weakness. It's peace. She didn't need the world to validate her path. The peace in her chest was enough. As weeks turned into months, the campus began to adjust to this new version of Olivia, not because they fully understood her transformation, but because she had become familiar again. She was no longer. Adaba opened the session, then turned to Olivia. "Would you like to begin?" Olivia stood and looked around the room. "When I was younger," she began, "I used to wonder if God ever answered. I would pray, cry, sometimes even yell into the silence. And that silence terrified me. But now I realize I expected God to respond the way I wanted, loudly, miraculously, on my terms. What I've learned is that God often speaks not in thunder, but in the quiet clarity that settles after confusion." She paused. "For me, God spoke through verses, through sleepless questions, through people like Adaba, who didn't try to convert me, but simply lived their truth. He spoke through every moment of discomfort that pushed me to seek." A student raised his hand. "What was the moment you knew Islam was right?" Olivia smiled. There wasn't just one moment. It was more like a series of small awakenings, like peeling away fog from a mirror until, finally, the reflection made sense. The more I read the Quran, the more I prayed. Even when I didn't know the words, the more I felt at home. And when I said the Shahada, it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like coming back. Another girl asked, "Do you ever feel judged?" "I do," Olivia answered honestly. "Some think I betrayed my background. Others assume I was pressured. Some believe I just wanted attention. But faith isn't about winning approval, and peace is worth whatever it costs." The session ended with quiet applause. But Olivia knew the real impact wasn't in the clapping. It was in the questions planted, just like the ones that had once been planted in her. Later that evening, Olivia and Adaba walked back to campus under the soft glow of moonlight. They were quiet, lost in thought, until Adaba finally said, "You've become the person others turn to when they doubt." "Ironic, isn't it?" Olivia replied with a small smile. "I used to be the doubter." "That's exactly why you're the right person," Adaba said. "You know what it feels like to not know." The next day, Olivia received a message that caught her off guard. It was from Rachel, the Jewish classmate who had once thanked her after the interfaith panel. "Olivia, I don't know what I believe anymore, but your story made me feel less alone. Would you be open to meeting?" Olivia replied right away. "Of course, I've been where you are." They met at the same cafe the following evening. Rachel looked anxious. Her hands trembled as she stirred her tea. "I've been attending synagogue since I was a child," Rachel began, "but lately I feel disconnected. The rituals feel empty, and I don't know if it's just me." "It's not just you," Olivia said gently. "Spiritual disconnection isn't failure. Sometimes it's an invitation to look deeper." Rachel bit her lip. "I've started reading parts of the Quran. It's not what I expected." "Same," Olivia smiled. "I expected conflict. I found clarity." Rachel hesitated. "Do you think God cares what name we use for him?" Olivia thought for a moment. "I think God cares that we seek him sincerely, and I believe truth has a direction. It's not vague. But I also believe God is patient. He waits for us to come willingly, with open hearts." They sat and talked for hours. Rachel didn't convert that night, but Olivia saw something familiar in her eyes. A flicker, a spark, the same one she had once carried in her own chest. That night, back in her room, Olivia opened her journal and wrote it all down, like she always did, capturing the moments that reminded her how far she had come, and how much further she could still go. Every night since she had uttered the Shahada, Olivia wrote in her notebook. It had become more than a journal. It was a living record of her transformation, not merely a timeline of conversion, but a sacred archive of growth, vulnerability, and awakening. On one page, she had written, "Faith isn't about who shouts the loudest or argues the best. It's about who listens carefully enough to hear truth whisper beneath the noise." At the end of that week, her professor invited her to speak at a guest lecture titled Faith in the Post-Modern Age. Olivia accepted the invitation. The idea of standing in front of a packed lecture hall made her nervous, but there was a quiet resolve in her now that hadn't been there before. When the day arrived, she stood at the podium, the bright stage lights warming her skin. She looked out over the filled auditorium, took a steady breath, and began. "I used to believe that religion was something inherited, that you simply followed whatever you were born into. But Islam taught me something different. It taught me that truth doesn't belong to any one culture, language, or family. Truth is a light, and anyone who sincerely walks toward it will find it." She shared her story, honestly, gently. She spoke of fear and vulnerability, of breakdowns that turned into breakthroughs, of moments of deep confusion and quiet joy. She didn't embellish or dramatize. She just told the truth.